Hello there, information architecture students from the University of Toronto's Faculty of Information. This is, of course, the Information Architecture course INF 2170, and we are about to start the third studio session. And this is going to be about card sorting. This is something that we introduced at the very end of the last session that we did last week. And this is essentially a chance for you to, this particular mini lecture is really just to sort of show you the steps necessary to get up and going with this. Now, I think for fairly obvious reasons, I can't show you the details of the sign-up process. So what will happen is that I will be posting information about the URL to go to in the Quarkus for our course. There'll be an announcement about this in Quarkus saying here is the URL, go there and essentially sign up. Now, I don't believe I have enough slots for absolutely every student, but I think it looks as though I have at least 25. So that's most of the students in the class. However, I think the best way to do this is going to be to have one person within your group to drive the process, and then the other students in your group essentially be the test subjects for doing the card sort activity. And of course, the person who's setting things up can also do this as well. I also recommend that if you can get essentially the more the merrier, the more people you can actually get to help out with this, the better the types of results that you're going to get. So the first thing I've actually got up here is from Optimal Workshop, and actually, what I should say is that, you know what, there's I should talk a little bit about the company here. So, a little bit about they are here's the group here. They are actually a New Zealand-based company who have been very kind over the past few years to give us access at the University of Toronto to use their tools and to put them through their paces, and all they ask in return is if we have nice things to say and or feedback about their tools, which is hopefully nice feedback, to essentially pass that information along, and then they will take that and incorporate changes into their new tools. The cool thing for me is that I do and have used these particular tools professionally, and these are the sort of tools that information architects do use in their work. And again, this is something that you can put on your portfolio to show that you've actually had experience with real world IA tools. But again, I just want to emphasize the people at Optimal Workshop have been really good, really kind, and clearly are cool, fun people looking at this photo here, to allow us to do this type of the exercises for the students in this class, and they're providing this free. And again, what they ask for is feedback. And again, I'll be providing information on how to provide that feedback along with the announcement for where to go to sign up for your system. And by the way, the two sets of tools, I'm just going to go. Let's see. Sorry, this one. Okay, so if when you're signing up, and please use your University of Toronto email address when signing up for this. The two sets of tools that we'll be using in this particular case for this course are Optimal Sort, which is this one right here, and the other one we're also going to be using is called TreeJack. And having said that, they are giving us all of the tools. So if you want to play with some of the other things that they have here, like one of these is Chalkmark. This is a relatively new thing for me. Haven't run across this one before. They also have a survey application now, which could certainly be useful. In some circumstances, perhaps not so much for this course. And this is a brand new one for me, Capture Qualitative Research with Reframer. I'm going to have to dive into this one. This is not something that we'll be necessarily be using for this course, but again, these are all legitimate IA tools and something that you can play with. I will also say that in addition to this video that I'm doing right now, I highly recommend. And the thing is, like, I can't give you the URL because it's an embedded URL. You actually have to be essentially within this dashboard view to be able to find it. But it says here, watch the webinars. And if you click on card sorting, it will then come up here. I'll just do it here. So there you go. So there's that from Optimal Sort, and again, it's a nice walkthrough. I'm going to be doing something very similar, but again, it's like if you want some additional information, it's there. Same also goes for tree testing, and we'll look at that in the future studio when we touch upon that. And the actual card sorting 101, which is what I've got here at this tab, that is essentially accessible by simply clicking on here. So again, and by the way, there's also a really nice step-by-step tutorial on how this actually works, if you wanted to do that as well. Now, having said all that, I want to go to... Okay, so now one of the things I want to take a look at is focusing on the information of describing the studio and how the work from this can be applied into the second project. So, and in fact, I just want to point out, this is in fact an updated version of the Studio 3 description. Please note the note, which is that a 2% attendance mark does apply to this and all of the studio sessions. So I keep getting asked that, despite the fact that this is in the syllabus. So I have a now added note to that effect within the each of the studio sessions. And again, what the basics are, I'm not going to talk about how you actually do the sign up and how you would actually begin to add information into the session, at least not at this point. The key thing is to please take a look at the announcement that was made just over a week ago that talks about how to go on and sign on for an account which is exclusive to the people within this particular class. So, having said that, once you actually have signed up and have had a quick look at the material that is there, what I want you to do, and here's something else I've decided to change. Initially, I was saying I wanted people to focus on doing only an open sort. I've had a bit of a rethink about that, because I realized that doing an open sort in some ways may be the hardest type of sort to do. So what I've actually decided to let the students do is to essentially choose what type of card sort they feel the most comfortable doing. So an open sort is essentially the type where you're allowed to go in and essentially let the user come up with their own ways of categorizing cards. So essentially, they're given all the cards, and then from the cards they're given, they decide which of those are in fact the categories that's going to be putting everything else under. In a closed sort, this is exactly what we saw with the Region Appeal site. What you can do with that is essentially that there is in fact a preset type of categories that are then available for people to then put their sorts under. This is in some ways the most the easiest form of card sort to do. The one thing that it may it is not as good as in terms of compared to the open sort is that it you may. What you saw with the Region Appeal sort was that in some cases the categories were ambiguous, and in some cases the cards were ambiguous. So with a closed sort, it may be a little bit harder to determine which thing is the ambiguous thing. Is it the category or is it the card? But having said that, if you believe that your labels for the categories are in fact quite clear, then yes, but by all means, go ahead and use and do a closed sort. And then a hybrid is kind of an amalgam of the two. And within optimal sort, if memory serves me right, you're actually giving the users the choice to actually create their own categories. So that is another option, and you'll see that within the program itself, which you'll see later in this particular video. And for the purposes of the studio session, I'm actually saying you can go ahead and use the optimal sort program, and I do advocate doing this certainly for some point, because for the second project you're definitely going to have to use it. But for the studio, if you want, you can also use Miro or print your own cards for running the card sort in a strictly manual session. Now, having said that, what I would then want you to do is create a list of cards to use in your card sorting study. And I want you to aim for approximately 20 cards. That is another minor tweak that I've made over the last version of the wording for this. The reason being is the note at the end that says that the free trial version of Optimal Workshop's card sort only allows up to 20 cards per sort. So what you can do, of course, if you actually have a lot more than 20 cards, and the cards, of course, include potentially the categories as well, you may, in fact, want to perhaps even double up. Have a second student within your group run a separate card sort using perhaps the same labels but different cards or additional cards, just so that you can accommodate websites where you have considerably more than 20 cards. That is certainly an option. It then becomes a little bit awkward to try to merge those results together. So really, the thing is that, as I say here, is that if you have more than 20 items, really select the labels that you want to test and use those. In other words, like if you think that there is going to be some confusion with particular labels, then those are the ones that you should focus on. If you think that there are some labels which are going to be perfectly clear and straightforward, then hey, don't use those. Do the ones that you think need the most focus. And then, having done that, once you've set everything up, select and invited participants. Use students from other groups. Now, this again is for the studio session, to run the card sort online or in person, however you want to do it, and then record the data. Time allowing, recruit at least 2 external participants and run 2 individual card sort sessions. So again, to be clear, for the studio session, what I'm asking you to do is go to somebody else in a different group and have them run a card sort, and have that and essentially do that for at least 2 individuals across the groups. I don't care if it's from the same group or different groups, that doesn't matter. The whole thing is just to do it with at least 2 students who are outside of your group for the studio session. Now, time allowing, the thing is that the studio sessions are fairly short. When we do this, non-virtually, and have the time, often we will go through at least two of these card sorts, and typically more than that. What we often aim for within the hour is 4, if at all possible. So I want you to do at least 2, but please, if you can, try to do 4. The more results you get back, the better it'll be in terms of trying to work with the data. And I say maximum of 4 if your website is small and you're able to get to do things fairly quickly and efficiently. By all means, do more. In fact, you will find that the results are much stronger the more people that you actually have to do things with. Now, but as I say, for the purposes of the studio session, and because of the amount of time that it then takes, please do at least 2 actual sessions and try to aim for 4 if at all possible. This is really more to give you a sense as to how all of this works, so that when it comes time to project number 2, you have an idea as to how to actually do all of this. And let's see. Yes, I just to mention here, each group member should participate in at least one card session in another group. So we don't want you to just lie back and set up the card sort for someone else to do. We want you to participate. So the size and time allowing, please try to actively participate in card sorts from other groups. And then you have to then analyze the data and propose a new information architecture. Want to look for new patterns in the data and develop a new global navigation for the website that you've picked, and then provide brief justifications for your IA design decisions. Now, again, how much you're going to be able to do that within a studio session, probably not a whole lot. But again, this is a prelude to what you're going to be asked to do for project number 3. So if you do notice that there are patterns emerging, then yes, that is of definite interest, and you can then go on and potentially incorporate the results you have into project number 3 directly, if in fact things are working out the way that you want them to. So having said that, let's actually take a look at project number 2. So this is due, and by the way, I actually did have that saying Tuesday. It is in fact November 20th is in fact a Sunday. So that's the date that we're actually looking for on for that particular thing too. Actually, no, I am wrong. It is in fact a Saturday. I need to go back and check that. So this one, in fact, will be different. But in any event, the key thing here is the card sorting study. So this is worth 35 marks. Of the total for project number 2, which in and of itself is actually worth 20 marks. But this is a just over a third of the marks expected for this particular project. And for the most part, what you're going to see here is pretty much the same type of information relating to the card sort project. So there's a bit of a prelude, which I'll come back to, but as I say here, design an open, closed, or hybrid online card sort. And I do, again, mention to try to aim for 20 cards, and the fact that, in fact, Optimal Workshops card sort only allows for up to 20 cards per sort. So again, and then much the same going forward. What I want to say for the other part of this is just to mention that it makes a lot of sense to provide some sort of introduction to the website that people will be targeting and taking a look at it and doing the card sort on. So as I say here, collect any pre-study data that you might think is pertinent, and also ask them any post-study debriefing questions that may arise after the fact. This can be done in person or can be conducted using the pre-post study questionnaires, which is available in Optimal Workshop. Suggestions for pre-study questions could include what they know about the website or similar types of websites, specific tasks they think ought to be able to accomplish on the target website, or anything else that you think may be pertinent. The same goes for any post-study debriefing, and in both cases, keep the number of questions to a useful minimum so as not to discourage users from completing the card sort. What you're going to see in some of the examples is that in some cases, if things were a little bit too onerous or perhaps too confusing, people in many cases may not complete the card sort. So again, you want to provide some context, say, here's some basic information about the website, and what we want you to do is to, with this card sort is to, place like items together. And that is the bulk of really what's going on here. I guess the other thing that I want to talk about in terms of the actual marking is that we do need the URL of the online card sorting study. So we want essentially this to be available on Optimal Workshop so that we can actually go in and take a look at the results. We can actually see what's going on directly. There is no marks for that, but it is most definitely necessary. We're not going to grade you on that, but we do need access. So please send us a URL that pertains to your online card sort study, and that is like from the perspective of the person who is, as if they are an administrator for this. And then there is 5 marks given to a brief description of the participant selected to participate in the study. So just what we're looking there is basically a background. So, provide information on where they come from, their previous experience with this type of website before, that type of thing, and just provide general information. I don't need names specifically, but we just want to know, like, are these students? Are these adults? What is their previous experience with this type of website, if any? Just so that we have a sense as to who these people are, and to give us a better sense as to whether or not you've managed to choose fairly good subjects to go in and to participate in your survey. You may also mention, for example, that if there are some people who did not complete your survey, to say that you had, let's for example say, had 6 people participate, but 1 decided to drop out. I mean, that is, that's something that we would want to know about. We also want to have a listing of all of the cards used in the study, and as I say here, presented in a table. If you modified labels from the current navigation or content organization of your website, please explain why. 7 marks goes to an overview of your execution. So how did you go about conducting the study? So again, we're wanting, given the fact that this is going to be done in Optimal Workshop's card sort tool, I mean, that's fairly straightforward, but we want to get a sense as to what are the metrics that actually came out, and you're going to see examples of that shortly. And again, like, how many people successfully completed the card sort? Were there any interesting comments that came at the end of the session? And then we want to have an analysis of your results and a summary of the main findings. That's 8 marks. And then, and this is the key one, propose a new global navigation, organization, and labeling system with justification for your IA design decision. So basically looking at things from, okay, well, here's what we had with the original, and here is where we identified problems, and based on the information that we have, now we're going to move forward, and here is the new labels, here's the new navigation, and here are the reasons why we think that this is an improvement, again based on information architecture based design decisions, meaning really user centric. It's not about you, it's about who you think the website is for, and optimizing it on their behalf. And that's all I want to talk about, at least in this case. Yes, there certainly is more to talk about in terms of the IA schematic diagram, but that's going to come in a future session. What I want to do is I'm going to go into so essentially I'm going to go into this particular card sort demo, and actually what I'm going to do first is I'm going to show you this particular website. So this is from, this is actually a targeted website, which is in the Toronto area. And this was actually targeted by a group last year who was doing a card sort. And here is essentially their main navigation. So we have home, activities, speakers, scholarships, advocacy, join now, members corner, contact links. So you can see that, not all of these have drop downs, but the ones that do, these are clearly natural ones to be considered to have as separate cards. So there's almost a fairly wordy one, but even then, that's that's all of 5 words. That's perfectly fine. And then speakers, you might want to click on if for example you have headings that have no individual drop downs. In this case, I'm just going to click on scholarships, and what do we get? And then we have scholarship awards. And what you could do in a case like this is that you could come up with a subsection that perhaps looks at something like, say, you could say, like, this as a scholarship fund. That could then be perhaps a separate card if in fact you're looking to have additional cards. You could also have something like, say, this sort of subheader that says donations. That could also be another legitimate target in that particular case. Okay, so now having said that, I'm going to go back to Optimal Workshop, and here is the optimal sort done for the University Women's Club for North York. So the first thing you're going to see is actually going to be this tab here that says Setup. And what I want you to do is you put in the name of the organization that hosts the website. So in this case, it's University Women's Club North York. And the Optimal Workshop will automatically come up with a link for you for the site, which I believe you can in fact change if you want. If you want to come up with a unique portion of the URL, I believe they will allow you to do that. But essentially what will happen is that you will be able to copy this particular link once it's been set, and then you can actually forward that by email to participants, and then they will click on this link and then they will go to the online card sort study. For language, please keep to the default, which is US, and then project folder. If you want, you can throw this into essentially try to keep it the same name if you like, or the name for your group if you prefer to have that. And don't worry about the rest of this particular portion. This is going to be available for those who have greater access to all of the full tools within the online workshop tool set. But so don't worry about that in this particular point. So then we get to, actually I'm going to click on categories. Actually no, you know what? Let's see. Okay. So categories in this case. So in this case, this is now it's interesting. This was set up as a hybrid card sort. So it's a close sort, and essentially, as you can see here, the categories: home, activities, speakers, scholarships, advocacy, join us, content, links, and all of that basically matches what you've got here. But then we have another category that's been added in. That's why this is a hybrid, called Not Sure. And it should be, I hope, fairly obvious to the people who are looking at this that, if I don't know where this is going to go, I'll put it under the Not Sure category. Alternatively, you can also add new categories if that's something you would like to do for the hybrid. Again, if you're trying out wholly new main navigation labels in this particular case. And then for the cards, you essentially go in and actually what you'll see in this place, now this, you'll actually get a chance essentially to enter the contents for all of these in individual text fields, and then it will go up to a certain amount. In this case, it is 20. So what you will do is that you'll be asked to enter each of the labels one by one, and then essentially at that point, when you've got them all, you then in this case it says you can create sorts with up to 30 cards. There we go. Okay, so that's perfectly fine. And then we have the categories, and then messages. So this is, if you want, you can show your participants a customized message and then redirect them to the chosen URL, as it says here, when you change to a plain pan. But the whole point of this is that if you wanted to put in something else here in terms of the title, if you wanted to put some other information here as to what the people should expect, for the most part you could probably just leave this as is, especially since for the most part the expectation is that you're going to be trying this out with perhaps some of the other students on this course, or perhaps some colleagues of yours who are who you've been happy to be roped in and help out with this particular thing. And then we have the question. Now again, this is, I would say this is not something you need to worry about in this particular case. I would say don't worry about this, because this is essentially to check as to whether or not the people coming to the study are really qualified to do it. In this case, we're going to be not essentially worrying about that particular part. But then we get to the area for the design. And again, if you want to, again, if we were on a professional plan, we could actually add our company logo if we wanted to, so that people could, know that this is sponsored by a particular company. We'd also change the color and text and so forth. Again, that doesn't apply to us in this particular case. And then you come here to the recruit portion. And this is essentially where, this places link onto your website, send an email invitation to existing contacts, customers or users, or share on social media. So, so here is the the original URL here. You can also get a shortened version of this. You can get a QR code or an internet snippet, or if you wanted to share these on your own social media to try to get other people to help out, yes, that's entirely possible to go and do that. So once you've done all this, you'll essentially have the chance to then launch this study. In fact, let me just hang on a second here. Actually, what I should do is I'm going to, let's see, I'm just going to go, okay, so here is the access from, starting something absolutely fresh. So, and again, here's where you would actually be entering the things in the text fields. Perhaps I should have done things this way. Anyways, but what I really want to show here is that you can save things along the way, so that if you have to go out and if there's a phone call, if you have to go out for a coffee, if you're meeting with friends or something, you can save the work for setting all this up in the meantime, and then you can also do a preview of how things currently look. And then when you've got everything in there and you have it set the way you want, and let me just do, okay, yes, and this is the other thing I want to show you, is that in the category section, this is where you choose the type of sort type. So whether it's open, closed, or hybrid, and again, I'm going to leave that to you as to which one you want to tackle. And then when you've entered all the information and everything is set to go, that's when you click on the launch. And that now makes essentially the study live to the participants. And that's where, at this point, you come here and you then pass along this URL or the shortened version of that, or however you want to distribute these, to the participants who have agreed to do the card sort for you. So then once you then, of course, the cool thing is that you then have a chance to have a look at the results. So this is where you then come back to this in your login, and then you click on results, and then these are the types of, this is the information that you're actually going to get back. So in this case, we had 19 of 27 participants complete the study and 8 abandon it midway. And again, professionally, you know, quite often people will not necessarily spend all of their time doing absolutely, you know, the whole card sort. Now again, 27 is arguably a fairly large number. I think they did more than one iteration in this case. I'm not necessarily expecting that number, but this is a good example to show you how often, many participants don't necessarily complete the entire, and in some cases, some people simply don't know where to put things, and then that's when they figure they're done. And it also shows you what the median time is for people to do this particular survey for this, in this particular instance, and also the location for where the people were actually resident in doing this particular survey, and then other particular information that, in this case, your participants created a total of 125 categories with a median of 7 categories each. And again, this was a hybrid sort. Now, the where things really get interesting is really in this particular tab here, is looking at the analysis, and I can see there's a whole bunch of sub-tabs that fall under this. So this is information about the individual participants and showing how many of them actually completed the task. So in this case, participant 4 was the first to do everything 100%. And notice that in this case, the first 3, we have the option to include or not to include. So I can switch this one back on if I think this is useful. However, they only did 15% of them, and this was in fact abandoned. So I'm going to say, nope, that's actually not terribly interesting, or sorry, I don't want this data to be included in the data to be analyzed, and then that removes it. So again, where possible, you definitely want to have 100% or close to it, for the analysis to work with. And again, you then have the choice to add or remove these. If somebody did this and it's a complete outlier and it's like, what were they thinking? It makes no sense. Then of course, even if it's 100%, then you can also take it out. But again, you need to be careful here. You don't want to lead the data, so to speak. So be very careful. Be judicious about that type of thing. But if there is someone who is just clearly they just did things randomly, and the results are clearly not clearly an outlier from everybody else's, then you can also legitimately remove them as a participant from this as well. And here we have all the participants, as you can see, the ones, this particular group kept all the ones that were essentially 100%. Okay, so then in the next group here, we have the cards. So here are the individual cards and how they were then sorted. And again, I wouldn't worry too much about this one. This may sort of allow you to zoom in on particular results in terms of so this card here, advocacy, was sorted into was sorted into 3 different categories, and here are the categories. So ones that are sorted into a lot of categories, like current year, that could go under pretty much anything, couldn't it? So this was potentially sorted under 5 different categories. Whereas something like directory was fairly clear that it might just go under 2, which in this case is contact or links. And ideally, you wanted people to sort of narrow this down to as few categories as possible. Anything that has a wide spread, like this one with 7 different categories, that sort of says that this could pretty much go anywhere. And that's how people ended up sorting things. Then we have information on the categories themselves, and again, the types of cards that were then put underneath them. And that information is here, and that's good. But where things get interesting is here. This should look similar to what I was showing you last week. This is essentially an idea of like a spreadsheet where you get an idea as to the frequency at which people ended up putting things under particular categories in this particular case. So advocacy, overwhelmingly, 16 participants put it under advocacy. Well, because the category is advocacy, the label's hey, it's probably going to be under advocacy. But then again, you have one person who then put it under speakers. Okay, and for all I know, that might even be the correct place to put it. Advocacy actions under advocacy. Surprise, surprise. If you have a category that has the same name as another label, you're more typically than not are going to find that there's people are going to put them under that particular category, and that's exactly what we see for these first 3 here. Directory, under this case, under contact, I think this is contact listing, contact links. There we go. Events have been sorted under activities. Yeah, that kind of makes sense. And then we have ones that have quite the spread. So, for example, latest news. Well, it could be under activities. It could be under advocacy. Most people put it under home, but it could also go under speakers. So this is quite the spread. The same also goes for this one. Interest groups currently full. Under basically absolutely every category, or just about. And again, this one had a non-standardized category, just a sort of a catch-all category. So again, this will give you a sense as to what labels seem to work and which ones do not. Like for this one, which is fairly descriptive, interest groups accepting more members, but where should that go under the categories that we have? Activities, advocacy. There's really not a lot of guidance in that particular case. This is actually a fairly descriptive label, but it's sort of hard it was clearly hard for people to figure out where that should go. It's an almost completely even spread all the way through. So that suggests to me in this case that it may not be the fault so much of this as perhaps a label under which you could then group these to make it more clear that that's where this sort of information belongs. And again, that is what you're trying to do here, is to try to make it so that people will essentially more naturally, more easily associate the labels under a given category. Then we get to things like the similarity matrix, and again, this essentially shows you a percentage of the essentially the relatability, essentially, of one thing to another. And this is where I'm not sure you actually get this particular result with the closed sort. This is more typical of, say, an open or hybrid sort, showing you the relative matches or similarities in which people tend to organize things. So in this case, fundraising tends to go with events fairly often in this case. So this is grouped together by 38% of the participants, in this case 7 times. Whereas this one, events and latest news, was grouped together by 27 of the participants, that's 5 times. And then this one down here, current year and events, again by 16% of the participants, and so on and so forth. So again, this is more information for you to try to understand what goes with what in terms of categories and labels. Then we get to dendrograms over here, which again give you, as it says here, the actual agreement method works best with 30 or more participants and will depict only absolute factual relationships. We call this the skeptical dendrogram. So, and in this case, essentially, it's looking at the things that again tend to be most closely associated with each other. So surprise, surprise, advocacy actions, and advocacy organizations all have advocacy in them, tend to be the most strongly associated with each other. And it's interesting because that tends to be also associated with this other group, essentially speakers' interest groups, and not sure. So the advocacy tree is essentially related strongly by the results with this other tree. And again, the results are really scattered in this particular case. We have this group here of get involved and members benefit, and this essentially belongs under join us. And then we have this other one here, which is make a gift. So interestingly enough, these 3 were relatively closely associated with each other. And again, this is another way to sort of give you a sense as to try to figure out which navigation items and labels are more closely associated with each other. And then we have this, which is, and again, this is useful sort of at a glance to give you a sense as to navigation structures and the drop-down items that then fall from them. So in this case, we have similar, information architecture IAs. 5 out of 18 tended to do things this particular way. So here we are with 4 groups submitted as so essentially join us in this case with fundraising, get involved, members benefit, make a gift, and then home with all of these things under it, and then advocacy with all these things under it, and then activities. So this was essentially the grouping. Essentially think of this as, say, navigation plus the items that fell under it that came up the most. And then there was another one here which came up, essentially 6 groups submitted something that was, again, fairly similar. And again, it's a different set of way of organizing things for the most part, but there are some similarities. So we have home here with media release, yes, latest news, yes, but then we have get involved, not there, and we have newsletters but share between the 2, and then we have photo gallery. But so you can see there are some differences. So this gives you some idea as to what you might want to think about if you wanted to do this as perhaps another iteration. And having said that, again, I am making this optional. You should be able to make some good guesses at this point as to what things work and what things do not. The other thing I should point out here is that this is also a slider, and you can also sort of set the bar as to how you want things actually to get sorted in terms of consider information IAs with between, say, 4 to 8 groups in this case. But I think you typically want to have a look at how things work out in this particular case first. And then there's the 3D cluster view, and I'll be honest, I don't always find this to be terribly useful in this case. So, I mean, this does sort of show, what are the, an idea as to the things that are more closely associated with each other than anything else. And as you can see, it is definitely a scatter in this particular case. You can move this around so you can more easily read the contents in this particular case. So essentially, this is showing you what are the things that are most closely associated with each other. And again, that can, in fact, can prove useful in some. But as you can see in this case, things are fairly scattered in this particular. There are some items that are really strongly associated with each other, and then we have things like this where it's, well, it's just two items which are completely on their own in this particular case. So this is a way, essentially, of looking at all of the data. A nice thing then is that what you can then do is that you can then download these types of analyses and raw data. So we have you can then download, if you like, the raw data, participants data, SynCap's data. If you want to use this with SynCap software, you're not going to be doing that, so don't worry about that. Standardized data, similarity matrix. Again, this is definitely going to be useful. I highly recommend downloading this one. The same goes for the standardization grid. The CSV file means that you can then load that in Excel or some other spreadsheet program and then work with that particular data. And what I would like to see in the project is I would like to see this particular data. This can actually be thrown in as an appendix within the second project. And the rest now is basically up to you. So that is pretty much it for me at this particular point. I'm going to be posting this video shortly to access Viquirkus along with the URL for accessing and signing up for Optimal Workshop. So talk to you all on Tuesday evening. Okay, take care, folks. Bye.